Q&A on here. Yeah. Okay. So I am going to call the meeting to order, and I'm going to go ahead and call roll. Jason Herring.
Yes, here.
Chuck Hart.
Yes.
Linda Alexander.
Here.
Pat Nave.
Here.
Charlotte is excused. Rock Ashfield.
I'm here, and the recording missed my great Linda Alexander story, so just for the record.
All right.
Tell it again for the recording.
Okay.
Alec Norman.
Here.
Jan is excused, Dan Dixon's excused, and Craig is excused. So we have a quorum.
You forgot Vic. I don't think you called Vic, did you?
He's not a member of the committee.
Oh,
So no, I did not call Vic. So I am going to skip down to the second item on the agenda. I want to come back because the first item is such a big one, and I want to give people that may have had trouble getting on a chance to do that. Like Melanie's trying to get on. So the second item on the agenda is to consider a letter regarding the port's public access improvement plan, the PAIP. And maybe Jason, can you put that up on the screen? This is the letter that I presented at the joint committee with some minor changes. This letter does 4 things. It tells the port how disappointed that we are that they only identified somewhere between 4 million and 4.2 million in available funds for the PIP when we were expecting about 42 million. It thanks them for partially funding 2 of our priorities, the connectivity plan and the life support system for the aquarium. It requests that should additional funds become available, because we really think there will be more funds available in this round, priority should be given to implementing the connectivity plan. That was our top priority. And it supports making the PAIP a permanent part of the port's operations, which was a suggestion by Commissioner Anthony Perosi. So that's the draft letter. Are there comments, questions?
Looks good to me.
I will move the letter and see if we have a second.
I'll
Sure.
second.
Second.
I'll raise my hand here.
Pat,
You know, I've talked to Tom Norman about whether he would, because of his, his business management background and all of that, if he would be willing to work on the PAIP stuff. And I'm wondering about, maybe we want to include in our letter that Professor Norman would be our liaison in discussing the PAIP with the commission or with the economic committee of the Board of Harbor Commissioners. What do you think?
I think if we're going to do that, that we first ask the board to appoint him as such, and that should be on the next board agenda to appoint him, and then we should let the
Okay,
board know that, if that's our intent. So I suggest that come out of your port committee to put that on the agenda for the next board meeting.
all right.
Any other comments before we vote on this?
Call the question.
Jason,
Yes.
Chuck,
Yes.
Linda,
Yes.
Pat,
Yes.
Rock,
Abstain.
Alec,
Yes.
and Diana, yes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 yes, 1 abstention. Motion carries. Okay, the next item on the agenda is to consider a letter regarding the goats at Peck Park. We want to put that up. The history on this is a number of years ago, we actually talked. Pat, is your hand up for a reason?
Oh, no,
Okay.
I thought I lowered it, sorry.
I don't know why these black, oh, I know what it is. The draft winds up doing that. A number of years ago, we actually talked the Rec and Parks into using goats to clear the brush at Peck Park, and they did it one time, but then they weren't willing, they didn't do it again. But we now have, hold on, let me respond to. We're going to be doing the San Pedro Marketplace in a minute after we do these other things, giving people a chance to get on. Anyway, they had not been willing to do it again. The new regional director is interested in doing goats, but she hasn't gotten the approval yet from the general manager. So this is a letter to the general manager, and also we would send it to the Rec and Parks Commission, asking that they consider using goats, and talks about the advantages of using goats. So is there, do we have a motion to that effect?
I so move.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion?
Did you change the letter at all since the previous letter that was written?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are these the greatest of all time?
Oh, the grazers of all time.
A bunch of
Oh,
Tom Brady's running around at Peck Park?
yeah.
Yeah, the community loved it when they were there. The shepherds, the goat herders allow people to come over and see the goats, and so it worked out quite well. Vic Christensen.
And I resemble that last remark because we went there when my son was little over on Point Vicente side, and they were a lot of fun to play with, and they bring out the babies as well as the adults. They don't only bring out the adults, so the whole families are there.
Okay.
Uh,
Any other comments before we vote on this?
Do we want to mention that it's being used elsewhere in the area? The goats are,
Yeah, the letter does.
but where?
In the second paragraph, the County of Los
They all
Angeles,
use, well, okay.
Rancho Palos Verdes and the Palos Verdes Conservancy all use goats for brush clearance.
Okay.
And then we have a list of additional companies that will attach. Anything else? Okay, so goats.
Records are covered.
Jason,
Yes.
Chuck,
Yes.
Linda,
Yes.
Pat,
Yes,
Rock,
Yes.
Alec,
Yes.
and Diana, yes. So that passes 7-0. Okay, so now we'll go back to our first item, which is to consider the comments on the proposed San Pedro Marketplace at Target. And what you have is about a 3-page letter to the planning staff that spells out many of our concerns about the project as it is currently proposed. I do have a question for you, and that is that I'm wondering if they were to be proposing a dry cleaners and a beauty salon or some type of office, if the objections would still apply, or if maybe we should, I hadn't done this in the letter, maybe we should make it clear in the letter that we're objecting to the use as a drive-through and a habit restaurant. So I throw that out there as a possible change to see if there's any thoughts on that. Chuck,
I just don't know, maybe we should ask the neighbors how they would feel about before we deal with it.
I assume we're gonna have a comment from the neighbors here in a minute.
I still don't like the placement of it regardless. I think it should be on the major commercial corridor and not nuzzled up against a residence when we have the opportunity. So I wouldn't, from my perspective, the use wouldn't change my opinion.
So we should probably keep the letter as it is then.
That's
Well,
my position.
Pat?
two things. One is that in terms of moving it to the corner, I remember that one of the big issues with the 7-Eleven across the street is that some plan or another said that these things should be right on the street and not back in a corner. So why aren't we citing that as reason to put the?
I think they're saying, Pat, that because it's right up against Capitol, it counts as
Yeah,
being on the street, as opposed to the 7-Eleven was not on Capitol or Gaffey, was nuzzled in the opposite corner.
yeah. The CPI doesn't require it to be on the corner, just that it be on the street. So,
I do think that a lot of the letter really is focused on what it does to the neighborhood and other things because of this trash, the trash cans, and the fact that it's back there in that corner. And I think some of those are ameliorated. And I think a sentence would be worthwhile to say, many of the, a number of these issues have to do with the use that's proposed to be made of it. Although I don't see how anybody could read this letter and not see that that's where a great number of problems are coming from, where our concerns are coming from.
okay, well, Melanie,
Yeah, I think after talking to many of the neighbors here in the area, they don't want it up against their property at all, anything. And I've done a lot of talking and investigation and stuff about original plans that they had. They were approved for 5,000-foot pad at the corner of Gaffey and Capitol on the original plans, which I forwarded to Diana.
Right.
And
yeah, go ahead, I'm sorry.
And the thing is that the neighbors, it's infringement on their privacy and their homes to put something like this up against the wall, be it a cleaners, be it a business, be it anything, because you have excessive activity going on behind there that will lead to a lot of traffic in there.
Okay.
Dry cleaners has a lot of environmental problems with the dry cleaners against somebody's property with the exhausts that they have and everything.
Thank you, Melanie. Ted?
I think I would,
I'm sorry.
I think I would echo what Melanie said. I don't think that putting anything on that southwest corner or along that western wall is really appropriate to people's quiet enjoyment of their property. It's hard to imagine a business that was so sparsely attended that the business would survive and yet also not bother the neighbors. If it was a model train store or something that had 5 customers a day, maybe it wouldn't be a big impact. But I think in all seriousness, there's just about no businesses I can think of that would fit there. I think basically it needs to be on the Gaffey Capitol corner on that main corridor.
So we won't make that change to the letter. Are there any other, does anyone have any other suggested changes or questions about the letter?
No, I'll just say it's fine. I think we've talked about this a lot last time and everybody's clear on what we're saying.
I might make.
Yes, I do need to point out, I did add one paragraph that was not in the copy. You probably saw, depending on when you looked at the website, and there was one that addressed the issue of smoke coming from the hobbit. So we just added that. Linda Alexander.
Well, forgive my ignorance. If it was on the planning to be on the corner of Gaffey and Capitol, so the planning doesn't matter, it's just a pretend document that we have no leverage to force them to be in that location.
what was actually, when Target came in, what Melanie was referring to is when Target came in, they actually proposed putting something on 5,000 square feet on the corner of Capitol and Gaffey. They proposed it, the city approved it. However, that entitlement, I understand, has run, and so they had to get a new entitlement. And now they're not proposing that site, they're proposing over next to the house. We can't force them, but the city could deny the proposed location, which is what we're urging them to do.
I thought it was a very well and very thorough letter.
Jason and then Pat.
Yeah, I wonder if there's anything also to be said about if you place these type of establishments on Capitol, you start to activate Capitol as more of a commercial thoroughfare where it's really not today. It'd be better to keep it focused on the corner so Gaffey maintains a thoroughfare for commercial activity as opposed to Capitol.
So do folks want to add something to that effect? Okay, yeah, Pat, go ahead and speak and then I'll come back to that.
Well, I have a suggestion about where it would be appropriate to add that.
Okay,
That's on the, I think it's about the third page or so when the letter talks about the categorical exemption and the fact that, or our assertion that it doesn't qualify.
mm-hmm,
To me, the weakest part of the city's case is finding that if this is an infill project that qualifies for the for this particular categorical exemption. And the thing that really shows it doesn't qualify is the blight or the aesthetics and smell and noise and everything with those trash cans. So I think, maybe a sentence in there about this changes the residential corridor characteristics of Capitol Drive to more of a commercial corridor would be okay there. But what I had my hand raised because I wanted to ask Rock a question.
I mean, this changes the residential corridor in nature,
It
Capitol.
doesn't change it, but it certainly affects the residential corridor nature of Capitol Drive. This is a feeder street.
Nature of Capitol Drive. Okay, now you had your hand raised.
Yeah, for Rock, Rock, you're probably the most knowledgeable person on here about other commercial places around the city. It just seems to me that there's, the idea of having the trash enclosure right on Capitol Drive, they've stuck it in the best, Habit has put it in the best place possible for them and the worst place possible for the people that walk along and drive along Capitol Drive. It's going to be an eyesore. We all know how these trash cans look after a while. You know of any other? You know of any
I don't know
other?
if I really add anything to that. We got things zoned a bunch of different ways and stuff. I per Jason's comment, I could go either way on that. Guys, I'm talking. I got dinner in the kitchen. Sorry, but and I don't know if putting something right there would sort of make it a commercial corridor. You got the Johnny's across the street and all that other kind of stuff. So I agree. If you could place it mostly on Gaffey, then that would be good.
I'm not thinking about the commercial corridor thing now. I'm thinking about how the categorical exemption issue. That to me is procedurally is a very strong. I mean, a thing that would cause the changes that we want to occur probably more than anything. And so I'm a very visual kind of person, Rock. I'm thinking, if there's some other place around the city where we could just take a picture and send it to them, say, hey, this is what we're going to get down here, 25 feet from Melanie's backyard. If you put this thing where you want to put it.
I think we all agree we don't want anything to be close to Melanie's backyard. So, but I don't know anything specific to that specific exemption. I'm sorry.
I'm going to drive around and look at some of these some of these places and see how they handle what they do with their trash. They got them right out there by the
I'll
street.
get on it tomorrow.
Okay, Melanie.
I think that's the most thing that's the most disturbing to me, I think, besides the drive-through and the emissions and all that from all the cars and everything. The neighbors and I talked, and that's like their big thing. But for me personally and my next door neighbor, it's that trash can being so close to the back of our house. Imagine going out there after they've been there a week through a busy weekend, and the stench that's going to build up out there and the flies, that's going to be nasty. I'm not even going to be able to use my backyard without going out there and gagging, let alone the rats and everything else that's going to be congregating around, and all the alley cats and the coyotes.
Don't
It's
forget the
gonna-
raccoon.
What I'm seeking right now, Melanie, is
And the goats.
specific comments on the letter, things that need to be added or deleted from the letter.
The
So
letter looks
we've
really
got-
good.
We've got that item in the letter, so we're only looking for comments.
Yeah,
Okay.
A list of
I'm gonna
animals
move
for
on.
animal, a list of animals for animal control.
Well, I'll just add, Pat, real quick. I mean, like at our office, the dumpster is in like a side closet outside.
Right.
And I was driving down some street in PV the other day, and the dumpsters were all, these big, heavy dumpsters, like industrial, were all thrown out on the road. And I was like, what is that? So we've seen some odd things before, just for the record.
But your dumpster probably isn't full of food waste though, right?
No, I agree. Except from Friday night, we do parties.
Little happy hour.
Party.
Anyway.
So,
I used to manage a,
Pat, you're getting off topic.
no, I'm not.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
Well, I used to manage a place, it was a hamburger stand and a fast, Frosty Freeze and everything like that. And the parking lot out and back where the dumpsters were was always a mess. You send somebody out to dump the trash and stuff like that, they swing open the lid, it goes crash and everything, they toss the stuff, they don't care if everything gets in the dumpster or not. Sometimes they don't bother to close the lid. I'll shut up now.
Okay, it looks to me like we have one suggested change, which is something that I can figure out, if it's all right with you, I'll figure out kind of where it goes and how it goes, but something to the effect of that this affects the residential corridor nature of Capitol Drive.
Yes.
Chuck, do you have your hand raised?
Yeah, it's just a passing note. You mentioned cleaners. There's a cleaner just north of Target already, so just something to keep in mind when you're making suggestions of what might go there. Consider the other businesses in the neighborhood.
Well, I was actually trying to see to what extent we were locked into the two businesses being proposed, or if there was a more general problem with that location. And the feedback I think I got was people were generally opposed to the location, period. So that was, so I think with that one change, then I'm ready to have someone make a motion and we can vote on it.
Motion we adopt with the change.
Is there a second?
Oh,
What?
I didn't know what he said. He was introducing the motion. Okay.
Yeah, Jason moved. Somebody want to second it?
I'll second.
That was Alec?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. Whoops. Okay, any other comments before I call roll? Before we vote? There we go. Okay. Jason,
Yes.
Chuck. Chuck,
Yes,
Linda. Linda? I think you're muted, Linda.
I muted because I had phone calls coming in. Yes,
Yes. Pat Nave,
Yes,
Rock,
Yes.
Alec,
Yes.
And Diana, yes, so it passes 7-0. Okay, the last thing really on our agenda, I'm not quite. We got that, okay. Was the letter or the comments on the street and transit amenities program. This was the letter that Javier introduced at the joint committee. And then this afternoon, I received and forwarded to all of you some comments from another neighborhood council. There were some interesting points and comments made. One of the things that they have in there is the suggestion that we request a full EIR rather than an MND, which is something we actually included in our community impact statement. And I think we can send a letter to that effect with no problem because we've already approved that. The comments on the MND are due in 2 days. And so another suggestion was that we ask for an extension of time in order to review it. So as individuals, people may want to do that because I'm not sure at this point we can go back. There's no board meeting to go to do that. So I think as individuals, we may want to request that extension of time. The current street furniture contract expires December 31st. And so another thought is to request that it be extended to give better time for review and decision-making process. And this was something we also had included in our CIS, so I can put that in a letter. One of the big things that was new was the current contract includes 14 toilets. The Bureau of Street Services anticipates that the existing contractor is going to pick these up December 31st. And so they have recommended that the city approve a 6-month stopgap measure, installing some type of portable toilets at a cost of $2.1 million for that until a permanent solution can be developed. Seems to me that if the current contract for the street furniture program were extended 6 months, it would both help in developing a transition program and it would also help with creating a better contract, and it would keep the toilets for 6 months at no cost to the city. So again, we don't have time to go back to the board with that. I'll certainly put it in my own individual letter and other people may want to do that. There's a lot of concerns that were raised in the email about the process that the city is using to select the contractors and the lack of clarity on what's going on, and the fact that that they may not have taken into consideration that one of the two proposers is including the toilets and the other one is not, along with some of the other concerns that we've previously raised about the environmental impacts. We have a letter that was prepared by Javier, which, can you put the Javier's letter up? I'm not sure what we want to do with it, whether we want to do anything with it, or if we want to bring it back to the joint committee, if we want to send it, we want to change it. So let's take a look at it and see what comments we have. Right. So the things that he pointed out in his letter, which are really not comments so much on the MND as they are on the overall program. The first one was the importance of installing bus shelters at new locations and increasing the overall number of shelters, the equal distribution of shelters in the city with particular attention to areas with high need of sun shelter and secure access to transit, that there should be no placement of bus shelters in single family residential areas. The fourth one is support for one of the two proposers' designs for the bus shelters. This is the proposer that does not include the toilets. The fifth one was to provide solar powered bus shelters as much as possible. And the sixth one was they need to disclose data sharing if they have Wi-Fi. So that's the draft letter that had been prepared by Javier. So I'm not sure what we want to do with it at this point. Open to comments.
So comment, what's the hesitancy about the single family? Was it the digital billboard aspect of it? Because, I mean, I think a bus stop is a bus stop. You should have a shield over your head. Sign.
You know, I don't know. I think it was probably the advertising, but I don't know that. Does anyone remember what Javier said about that?
No, but I agree. I agree with Jason. I think it ought to come out.
People generally think it should come out.
There's a bus stop there anyway. Why should people picking up that particular spot not have shield from the sun? Are they waiting a short amount of time? I doubt it.
I think it had to do with the advertising and the lights at night. But I'm not sure. I've not been following this very closely myself, so it's kind of hard to answer questions, which is why I'm not sure what we want to do with the letter, if we even want to do something with the letter tonight. Pat?
Well, on the bus shelters in residential areas, I think if you have the shelter in a residential area, the people who are waiting for a bus will stay there in the shelter and not wander around. If you got a couple of kids waiting and you don't have any shelter or something like that, they'll be running up and down the sidewalk and, you know, maybe getting into some mischief and stuff like that. I'd rather see the shelters in the residential areas, actually.
I wouldn't, my hands up. Like 19th Street, you know, the buses go up and down and it's amazing. I actually sold a house that the bus stop was right there. They were elevated, but I'm trying to figure out what's the comment that people are objecting to?
Oh, it was that number 3, that bus shelters should not be placed in single family residential areas.
Hmm.
So that you take your 19th Street, that stop there potentially could have a shelter if you take this out.
And that would be sort of weird. You think about, I'm sort of agree with it in a way, because you could run into some weird stuff. Of all of a sudden, guy walks out his front door and there's a bus stop shelter.
As opposed to our bus stop.
I mean, if we don't want the drive-in next to Melanie's house, I don't know why I want a bus shelter in front of my house.
Well, the bus stop's there anyway, so.
True, but I don't have a thing out there. And maybe there's a modified thing there. I don't know.
Maybe it's that residential neighborhoods need to be consulted and agree to have shelters in those neighborhoods.
Very good, very good.
Yeah, I don't know.
They should provide input. That's really what it is.
Yeah, just add a couple of words to number 3. Just says no placement of bus shelters in single family residential areas without the permission or consult.
Well, I don't know if permission's appropriate, but
Approval?
it still says permission.
Pat, I think you froze.
Would approval work? Instead of permission?
Approval and permission are really just functionally the same in this circumstance.
Yeah, but they sound better.
I mean,
Pat?
the city won't ask for permission from residents if they can put something in their easement. It's not really appropriate.
Well, the city does require a vote for assessment districts, for example. So they do have a way of doing that. Pat, you are totally frozen. You may want to come in here and make your statement. You're going to log off and come back on? Okay.
I thought that was his natural look.
I think we probably want to pull into this letter many of the comments that we put in our council file, our CI, community impact statement. or attach our community impact statement to this. Any other comments on the letter? Whether, do we think we want to send a letter even?
Maybe not.
Maybe not, Linda? So
Yeah,
just-
yeah. This group seems to be a little not for it overall.
Outside of most letters we send, I find this almost the least objectionable.
Okay.
And I don't have strong feelings about the issue or when this will all happen and all that other kind of stuff, but I think we've been a lot stronger on a lot of other issues.
Well,
Hmm.
well, we wouldn't want number 4, right? Because we haven't had a group decision on that in our committee.
Yeah,
That's
I
probably a
have,
good point.
I have trouble with that, particularly without reviewing the design ourselves and
But
Another thing is, number one, installation at new locations. Well, probably the busiest locations now are the ones that have shelters. So do we want to have these things put out into new locations and have the busiest locations where they're probably the most appropriate, not have any shelters? I don't really like the wording of number 1.
I agree with you. That's right. Let's trash the letter.
yeah, I had some problems with number 1 as well. Yeah, I
I
think,
told you the group doesn't want this letter.
I think we're just going to,
Linda the prophet.
unless someone wants to make a motion to adopt the letter, I think we'll
I'll
leave that
pass.
letter
I'll pass.
be. I would suggest if people want to contact and ask for any extension of time or comment on any of the other things, to comment directly. And I will send a letter to the city on the things that we've already approved as a board. So, and Pat's coming back in without knowing we've done all this.
Got another trash story, so.
So Pat, can you hear us?
Yeah, I'm back on now.
Okay, hi. So we have decided to just table the letter
Oh,
for now, anyway. We didn't take an official vote, but nobody wanted to make the motion to approve it. Let's put it that way. So, okay, that gets us down to updates on items of interest to the committee. And I actually only have one update, which is that we did receive a response to our letter regarding adjusting the border in the community plan between San Pedro and Harbor City. The letter came from the planning staff. It was basically non-committal, but saying that they follow census tract boundaries. I think that I'm going to recommend a follow-up letter pointing out that, originally the census tract boundary did go to PV Drive. So when it was originally done, for some reason, or at least when we made our neighborhood council, it went there, and census tracts do change. And seems to me a community plan is supposed to represent the community of interest, which is San Pedro, and should not have a piece of San Pedro in the Harbor City community plan. But I didn't think of that until too late to do it on tonight's agenda. So that's the one update I have. Anybody else have an update? Okay, public comment.
I'll have to say something real quick.
Yeah.
As we know, we had the Topaz presentation last week, so I did preview some of those storefronts. There's a comment that they're not ready. I think A1 was supposed to go in to sort of actually walk into those 3 storefronts closest to Topaz. It's one big area inside and only one bathroom in the corner. And then there's 2 above it between us, that and Bueno's. Am I saying that right, by the way?
oh no.
Oh, no.
Bono. Thank you. It took 3 years to. And that was a big space too. So they're not sort of subdivided into all these specific spots. I just thought you'd like to know. And then they're actually are trying to do stuff where the school was in Topaz on the first floor. So on the corner there, that isn't built out yet, but apparently they're going to make those available. Just your little Topaz real estate update.
Well, here's another update on Topaz. Evidently, the group that filed the appeal on the project across the street from San Pedro City Hall has also now filed an appeal on the topaz. They filed the appeal based upon the environmental work, which makes no sense because the envelope isn't changing. But what they're really doing is they're trying to get all of the labor to be done with union labor. And so this is a way of trying to force that, evidently. So but that has been appealed. Okay, that gets us to public comments on non-agenda items. Anyone have a public comment? Okay, seeing none. Our next week, we have the joint committee meeting on Wednesday. And the biggest item on it is the block across, the presentation of the plans for the block across from City Hall. There's some other items on it as well. And then our next committee meeting is scheduled for Wednesday, December 8th, if we need it. I'm not sure that we're going to have a need for it, but if we do, it would be Wednesday, December 8th.
We could wear ugly Christmas sweaters and
We
have
can wear
it.
ugly Christmas sweaters. You can, yes, we can. Do you have a good collection?
Just one that lights up, but I don't think it has a battery anymore, so,
Just as well.
yes.
I was in Target yesterday and I noticed they had some great men's ugly Christmas sweaters in Target.
You didn't buy one, did you?
I considered it. I thought you needed one. You've never had one. Anything else for the good of the good?
No, but congratulations for keeping this under an hour. This is fantastic.
Well, that's partly because we had a smaller group tonight. Okay, thank you all.
All right, bye.
That will
Bye now.
say meeting is adjourned.